Hello, Astro Bros subscribers. So, today I'm going to be talking about another lesser known or not very much discussed on YouTube topic in the terms of astrology. So, here we are. Um, this is particularly about the orbit of Jupiter and specifically the orbital period of Jupiter, the length of it, and how it fits into other transits. So most people would be aware that what you call your birthday is the sun returning back to the place in the sky roughly that it was when you were born. The 12 years equals one Jupiter period. So basically, when the sun is going around, that's one. Every birthday that passes, this is 1 year, obviously, and then this translates into 12 years translates into one Jupiter period. And the reason this is important is because each of these Jupiter periods mark specific levels, I suppose, in life. A lot of people have heard about the Saturn return that happens every 30 years, which is a Saturn period. A Saturn orbital period is 30 years long. And this kind of chops your life into three, assuming you're going to live greater than 60 and less than 90 years, which the vast majority of people do, unless they meet like an untimely end or something. The Saturn return chops your life into three. The Jupiter return, on the other hand, chops your life into either 6 or 7, depending on how you look at it. So, the first... by the way, the Saturn returns correspond to the three different types of ages or three different levels of the human body, I suppose you could say. So the first Saturn return is the first 30 years of your life is your youth, effectively. The second 30 years of your life, 30 to 60, is your adulthood, your true adulthood. And then the last 30 years of your life, or however long you make it into that, is your old age. And these Saturn returns take on the aspects of the three fire signs. So it starts with Aries, and this is your warrior phase, your 0 to 30, the foundation, the root chakra of your life. The middle age, it corresponds to Leo, or the solar plexus chakra, which is your action, orientation, your business. And this is when a lot of people, if they're inclined to gain success, they gain success between 30 and 60 typically. And then the last portion of your life is ruled by Sagittarius, which is Jupiter, which is spent teaching, preaching, coaching younger people and transmitting knowledge back down the ladder to the younger people. So, this being said, what are the Jupiter time periods of 12 years apart? The first one is ruled by is Aries, and it's ruled by Saturn and Mars. And this is, if you look at it, it makes sense because the kids are always basically trying new things impulsively. Aries is the cardinal fire sign, and it is the job of the older people, the authority in their lives, to tell them effectively what things are dangerous and what not to do. So that's pretty self-explanatory. And it's the root chakra because that's basically your childhood is when you're most vulnerable. You could argue that it's when you're older, but when you're older, you have more to lose, or less to lose, rather. When you're childhood, you have your whole life to lose. So that's really actually when you're most vulnerable. The second, 12 to 24, is your sacral chakra. It's ruled by Gemini, and it deals with pleasure seeking, but it's ruled by Mercury and Jupiter. So it actually, the main function of this area of your life, 12 to 24, you could call it adolescence, is not to seek pleasure, even though that's what everybody thinks the sacral chakra is. It's really more about learning how to understand the belief systems of your culture, which is Jupiter, and also to question them, which is Gemini, effectively. Mercury is the child asking questions, and Jupiter is the wise old teacher telling the old rules. of the system. Okay, so the next part of your life, which is 24 to 36, which marks the halfway point, considering that the average human life is 72 years, 36 would be the halfway point. Jupiter fits very, very neatly into this. The 24 to 36 would be considered your young adulthood, and the goal of this is solar plexus chakra is effectively to make something of yourself in the world, to establish yourself, and to fight for your position and your ability to provide. It is also the point when people tend to have kids, which is fitting because Leo is the sign of children, it's the sign of romance, it's the sign of experimental ventures, it's the sign of your higher aesthetic self, not your higher self, mind you. There's two higher selves. One is Leo, which is the appearance of your higher self, and one is Sagittarius, which is the knowledge of your higher self. They are connected, though, obviously, as with everything in astrology. And this is the solar plexus chakra. It's ruled by Sun and Mars. The fourth, Jupiter period of your life, starting at 36 and going to 48, is the it's the Libra period. This is when it's very important to maintain your personal relationships, and your individual goals start becoming less important, because the primary focus of your life at this point should effectively be your marriage and your children. And the maintaining of your relationship is pretty crucial to dealing with all that stuff. The next one, 48 to 60, is the beginning of the Sagittarius Jupiter cycle, and it's ruled by Jupiter and Venus, and the goal is basically to establish yourself while teaching, maintain a stable existence that you can, facilitate your existence in during the last years of your life when you're more vulnerable physically, and make yourself comfortable, and also while you're teaching and transmitting information that you've learned in the initial stages back down the pipe to people who might need your wisdom. This is when people who are academics tend to write the majority of their books. It's when they have more free time to engage in more intellectual pursuits that they might have wanted to do when they were kids but never got the chance because they had to start establishing themselves. It's the sign that it's the area of life where people can tend to become grandparents in, or most often that they do. Obviously, there are exceptions to this rule. And then the final, I guess there are two final parts. The 60 to 72 is known as Aquarius, and this is the summation of somebody's entire existence. Basically, they are able to, they got what they were looking for, whatever they were looking for, or they didn't. So they're either disappointed with it or they're happy with it. But effectively, they're weighing the results of their achievements, and oftentimes people can get a life crisis here where they feel like they didn't achieve enough during their life, so they go and they try to relive their Leo years, their 24 to 36 years, that cycle. And as a result, you can see grandfathers in old sports cars, bright yellow sports cars, riding around with a 20-year-old hot chick, and they're trying to relive their Leo years. This is something that we definitely see here in America a lot. Dudes who may not have been the most active during their Leo years, and now they're old, and they have what they wanted to get back then, and now they're reliving that, which is kind of embarrassing for their grandkids. Anyway, the final cycle, most people don't live much longer than this, but 72 to 84 is ruled by Jupiter and Moon, and the goal of this period is basically to reflect and plan your next lifetime / prepare for the afterlife, the great unknown, and balance your emotional state, which is why it's also ruled by the moon. This is when people tend to get into researching what might happen after they die, because they have a lot of free time, so what else are they going to do in their retirement home but read about what might be happening to them after this great adventure is over. So these are the orbital periods of Jupiter that you can use to predict within the context of somebody's life. It's okay, what 12-year span are you in? Because that's going to define, all transits aside, the yearly transits, the bi-yearly transit of Mars, the phase of the moon, all this stuff is going to determine where somebody's like sort of short-term temporary reaction to things is. But life tends to hit you in cycles, and the Jupiter and Saturn cycles are very important for predicting, like, so say you want to predict what somebody's going to be doing when they're 30, like in their 30s. You have to take into account that they are in their Leo. If they're in their early 30s, they're in their Leo phase of their Jupiter cycle. And if they're in their late 30s, after 36, they're going to be in the Libra cycle. So you have to start with that, and then you can scroll the planets ahead to see where the, their mind might be at that point. So you can basically scroll deeper and deeper into a person's life by rolling the planets ahead. And it's not always going to get the best result, but in general, people do trend toward astrological paths, whether they know it or not. And obviously you get people who are extremely original and break out of the mold and use their intelligence to do things, and that's the free will aspect of astrology. But even then, if you're fighting against the astrological current, there's only so much that you can really do in your life. You have to go with the rhythm to be the most effective. There are ways around that, but they're very, very complicated, and most people never learn them. So yeah, that is my take on the using Jupiter to predict things in astrology. Now, there's one more thing I want to mention. So look at where your Jupiter is placed in your chart, right? So let's say my Jupiter's in the 5th house. So let's look at that, right? Jupiter in the 5th house, let's say in Scorpio, just for argument's sake. When you turn 24, let's say, or 12, or any year which is a multiple of 12, you're going to encounter things related to the root chakra of that particular 12-year cycle of your life, right? There's 12 chakras. You break it down. The first year, let's say like 36 to 37, this is root chakra year for Jupiter. 37 to 38, this is Earth Star chakra. 38 to 39, sacral chakra. And you follow this all the way around till you get to back to the crown chakra, and then you can really zoom in by year. Because once you get to the year, you can look at where the sun is. And you can look at, okay, well, what year is it? Okay, look to Jupiter. It's like, okay, you're in the root chakra of your Leo Jupiter period. It's like, this means you are going to be effectively trying to establish your place in the world. You're going to be questioning a lot of things that you did in the past in your age of 12 to 23. You're going to be questioning your belief systems, and you're going to be questioning, how do I move forward with these belief systems that I spent my educational years acquiring? Moving into, like, okay, what month is it? Okay, it's, let's say July, and the sun's in Cancer. It's like, all right, you're going to be focused on your emotions and your emotional connection to your family and taking care of people and all these things. It's like, what house is Cancer in? It's like, you have to look at all these things, and then you can zoom in farther and farther. It's like, okay, what sign is the moon in? It's like, okay, the moon's in Scorpio right now. And let's say that the moon is, it would be waxing at that point. So it's like you're going to be, had a setback, an emotional setback, and you're trying to figure out how to control the outcome of this emotional setback so that you can actually fix this whatever problem just emerged in your familial or domestic life that relates to your survival and your starting this new cycle of trying to, like, basically take the knowledge that you acquired in the past and during the last 12 years and move forward with it into the future and establish yourself as an actual adult in the world. So, this is just an example of a hypothetical person that you can zoom into their life and really see where they are based on Jupiter, Sun, Moon, and from time to time Saturn. So that was my analysis of Jupiter periods. Tune in next time, and I'll be doing my Jyeshta Nakshatra video quite soon. Thanks.